Right now, beneath your feet, there is a conversation happening. Not with words, not with sounds, but through an invisible underground network so vast and so sophisticated that scientists have given it a nickname straight out of science fiction. They call it the Wood Wide Web, and once you understand how it works, you will never look at a forest the same way again. Let's start with something that seems obvious but actually isn't. When you look at a forest, you see individual trees, an oak here, a birch there, maybe a pine standing tall at the edge. They look separate, they look independent. But here is the truth that took scientists decades to figure out. Those trees are connected, not just loosely, not just by proximity, but through a literal network of biological cables running beneath the soil. And the technology powering this network? Fungi. Now before you picture a mushroom doing tech support, let me explain. The mushrooms you see popping up on the forest floor are just the visible tip. Beneath the surface, fungi grow in massive thread-like structures called mycelium. These threads are incredibly thin, thinner than a human hair, but they stretch for miles. A single teaspoon of healthy forest soil can contain miles of these fungal threads. To put that in perspective, the total length of fungal mycelium in the top 10 centimeters of forest soil can exceed the distance from the Earth to the Sunday. That is not an exaggeration. That is peer-reviewed science, and here is where it gets truly remarkable. These fungal threads physically attach themselves to tree roots. They weave into the root cells and form a partnership that has existed for over 400 million years. Scientists call this relationship mycorrhizal, which literally means fungus root. And this partnership changes everything about how we understand forests. So what exactly are the trees and fungi doing together? Think of it as a trade deal. The fungus cannot make its own food. It cannot photosynthesize. It needs sugar, and trees have plenty of that. So the tree shares sugars with the fungus through the root connection. In return, the fungus does something the tree struggles to do on its own. It mines the soil for nutrients. Phosphorus, nitrogen, zinc, copper. The fungal threads are so thin they can access tiny pockets of soil that chunky tree roots simply cannot reach. So the fungus delivers these nutrients directly to the tree. Sugar for nutrients. A fair exchange that benefits both sides. In fact, some estimates suggest that up to 90% of all land plants depend on mycorrhizal fungi to survive. Without this partnership, most forests, as we know them, simply would not exist. But here is where it gets wild. The fungal network does not just connect one tree to one fungus, it connects tree to tree to tree. One fungal network can link dozens, sometimes hundreds of trees together. And through this shared network, trees actually transfer resources to each other. This is not a metaphor. This is measured, documented science. In the late 1990s, a Canadian forest ecologist named Suzanne Simard designed a brilliant experiment. She covered young trees with plastic bags and fed them radioactive carbon dioxide. As the trees absorbed the carbon through photosynthesis, she could track exactly where that carbon went, and it didn't stay in one tree. The radioactive carbon traveled through the fungal network from one tree to another. Paper birch trees were sharing carbon with Douglas fir trees growing in the shade. The birch trees, standing in full sunlight and producing more sugar than they needed, were essentially feeding their neighbors through the underground network. Think about that for a second. Trees sharing food with other trees, not because they were forced to, but through a system that evolved to keep the whole forest healthier. Simard's research also revealed something incredible about older trees. The biggest, most connected trees in the forest act as central hubs in the network. She called them mother trees. A single mother tree can be connected to hundreds of younger trees, and she found that these elder trees preferentially send more carbon to their own offspring. They recognize their own seedlings through the network and give them extra resources. That is not random nutrient leaking, that is targeted support. Even more remarkably, when a mother tree is dying, it has been observed dumping its remaining carbon stores into the network. essentially passing on its resources to the next generation before it falls. But resource sharing is only part of the story. Trees also use this network to send warnings. When a tree is attacked by insects, it doesn't just suffer in silence. It releases chemical signals through the fungal network. Neighboring trees receive these signals and respond by ramping up their own chemical defenses before the insects even reach them. It is an early warning system. One study found that trees connected through fungal networks were significantly more resistant to pest attacks than trees growing in isolation. The network gave them advance notice to prepare. And the communication goes even further. Some trees release volatile chemicals into the air when they are under attack. You know that fresh, sharp smell when you tear a leaf? Those are defensive chemicals. Nearby trees detect these airborne signals and start producing their own defensive compounds. African acacia trees are a famous example. When giraffes start munching on one tree, it releases ethylene gas, and acacias downwind begin pumping bitter tannins into their leaves within minutes, making themselves taste terrible. So trees are communicating both underground through the fungal network and above ground through the air. They have two separate communication channels running simultaneously. Now, not everything in this underground world is cooperative. The network has its villains too. Some plants have figured out how to hack the system. Certain orchid species, for example, tap into the fungal network and steal sugars from trees without giving anything back. And some tree species use the network to wage chemical warfare against competitors, sending toxic compounds through the fungal threads to poison neighboring trees and reduce competition. Black walnut trees are notorious for this, producing a chemical called juglone that suppresses the growth of nearby plants. The network enables cooperation, but it also enables sabotage. There is also a dark side for the fungi themselves. Some fungal species are parasitic rather than mutualistic. Instead of trading fairly, they take sugars from the tree and give very little in return, slowly weakening their host. So the underground network is not some peaceful utopia. It is a complex ecosystem with cooperation, competition, theft, and warfare all happening simultaneously, just like any other community. So why does all this matter beyond being fascinating? Because it fundamentally changes how we should think about forest management. For decades, foresters managed forests by focusing on individual trees. They would clear-cut an area, remove old trees they considered unproductive, and plant rows of identical saplings. But Simard's research shows that removing mother trees can devastate an entire network. The young trees lose their primary source of shared nutrients and chemical communication. Seedling survival rates drop dramatically. The forest becomes more vulnerable to disease and environmental stress. This has real implications for how we fight climate change too. Forests are one of our most important carbon sinks. They absorb enormous amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. But a healthy, connected forest with intact fungal networks absorbs and stores significantly more carbon than a fragmented, disconnected one. When we destroy the underground network through aggressive logging or soil disruption, we are not just killing trees. We are dismantling the infrastructure that makes the entire forest resilient. Some researchers are now exploring whether we can use this knowledge to help forests recover. By inoculating damaged soils with beneficial fungi, or by deliberately preserving mother trees during selective logging, we might be able to maintain the network that keeps forests healthy. Early trials in British Columbia have shown promising results, with inoculated seedlings showing dramatically higher survival rates in their first few years. It is forest management informed not by treating trees as isolated resources, but as members of a connected community. And perhaps the most humbling part of all this is how long it took us to figure it out. Trees have been doing this for 400 million years. That is roughly 399 million years before humans showed up. We invented the internet in the 1960s. Trees built theirs during the Devonian period, back when fish were just starting to crawl onto land. Our most advanced fiber optic cables carry data at the speed of light. The fungal network carries sugars and chemical signals at the speed of biology, slow by our standards, but relentlessly effective across geological time. So the next time you walk through a forest, look down. Beneath your shoes, beneath the leaf litter and the soil, there is a living network humming with activity. Trees are trading nutrients, sending warnings, feeding their young, and yes, sometimes poisoning their rivals. It is not magic, it is biology. And honestly, it might be even more incredible than magic, because it is real. The trees are talking. They have always been talking. We just finally learned how to listen.